Hey guys, LevelCap here and welcome to another episode of This Week in Gaming. In case you missed it, this week's biggest story is Valve announcing a new Half-Life game called Half-Life ALYX. It's a VR exclusive title that serves as a prequel to Half-Life 2 and focuses on the character ALYX. If you're interested in the full details, I did a video breakdown of the announcement and my thoughts on the game. The VR exclusivity is a tough sell, especially for people without headsets or powerful PCs. The good news is that it will work with any Steam VR compatible headset like the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, as well as Windows mixed reality devices. Some compatible devices with decent specs can be had for under $300, so the barrier to entry, especially by the game's March 2020 release date, might not be quite as high as some people think. Valve also dropped a surprise on CSGO players. They launched the game's first operation in 2 years. Operation Shattered Web adds some new community maps, skins, and related content. In a first for the game, it also introduces new outfits for the game's character models. In CSGO's early days, a much wider variety of character appearances, including female models, were being developed. As time went on, these were narrowed down and simplified to improve visibility and trim the fat, so to speak. The big concern with Shattered Web is some of the character models blend in with the environment on specific maps. We'll just have to wait and see if this becomes a big problem, or if Valve plan to disable the feature for competitive matchmaking. Upcoming tournaments have already banned their use. In Battlefield 5 news, DICE have postponed a community broadcast regarding the game's upcoming custom server system until sometime next week. This is due to the massive backlash caused by DICE announcing sweeping balance changes coming to the game in Update 5.2. In a nutshell, DICE are rebalancing most of the weapons in the game to require more bullets to kill at range. They're also tweaking the rate of fire, recoil, bullet velocity, ammo count, and even specializations for most of the affected weapons. This has left the community uncertain as to whether or not this is the return of TTK 2.0 from last year or just a sweeping rebalance that won't affect the general TTK of the game. Certainly some weapons will end up with a different time to kill with the 5.2 rebalance, but basically nothing else is really too clear about it. The good news is DICE will be addressing these concerns next week, in addition to finally discussing community games. A follow-up post to last week's announcement will go into further detail about how the 5.2 changes will affect the game. Hopefully we finally get some clarity, as the proposed changes seem like a massive departure from the game we've been playing all year. A big update for Modern Warfare has been released. It adds the classic gun game mode, a realism mosh pit playlist, and new special operations missions. On the balance front, footstep audio has been tweaked and the player outline from snapshot nades has been brightened up a bit. Tanks in Ground War had their damage radius and overall lethality reduced. The developers have also added new audio options to tweak the sound of voice comms with immersive radio effects and filters. Small tweaks have been made across the game's menus to look a little bit more fleshed out as well. As for bugs, a few major ones have been addressed. An issue that caused kill streaks to reset has now been fixed. Dead silent not lasting long enough has been fixed. There's also a few fixes related to perks and weapon attachments. As for future content, data mines have revealed further info about Modern Warfare's upcoming Battle Royale mode. Apparently, and remember this is speculation based on data mines, the mode will support 200 players, respawning, and more. Dead players will have a chance to 1v1 their way back into a match. So if you die, you spawn in a new area and have to kill another dead player to return to the match. Call of Duty Mobile has also gotten some attention recently. The game's latest update adds a zombie mode and finally adds native controller support back. Call of Duty Mobile supported controller input at launch, but it was quickly disabled because it wasn't ready or something along those lines. Regardless, it's without a doubt welcomed by players, especially those that are actually playing on their phones and not using PC launchers to run the game. With shifting tides fast approaching, Rainbow Six Siege is throwing a free-to-play weekend. The game's next major update has been available on the public test server for a couple of weeks now. It introduces 2 new operators, a rework of Theme Park, and a new damage model that allows for collateral damage. Overall, it's proving to be a big update and an exciting time to check Siege out if you haven't already. The game is also currently offering a money heist event with a slightly modified hostage mode on bank and some related cosmetic items. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds 5.2 update is live. It adds spike traps that puncture vehicle tires and they spawn as random loot across the map. They're single use though, so once you throw them down you can't pick them back up. If you're looking to block off a bridge or something along those lines, they're a strong first wave of defense. You'll just need to find a bunch of them first. 5.2 also adds a waypoint system that lets players plot a route for their teammates to follow across the map. The more recently added map Vikendi got some tweaks. The devs removed some buildings to clear up sightlines, they removed windows from certain buildings, and generally they just cleaned up things like trees and debris to make visibility better across the whole map. PUBG's devs are also testing experimental features out in-game with a new option called PUBG Labs. This is basically a way for the devs to test random features and content that may or may not make it into the game. It's available in the game's main client. An upcoming experiment will be ranked play, so be sure to keep an eye out for that one. Fortnite's current season of content has been extended into February. The game recently had a massive event that effectively rebooted the game with a new map and vaulted the game's more exotic weapons and items. Season 1 was scheduled to end in December with 14 days of holiday content filling in the gap between Season 1 and 2. But it seems like the holiday content in current season will just coexist at the same time. Fortnite's most recent update added a pretty significant technical feature. The game now supports DirectX 12. This gives your PC hardware more direct access to the game. For some players, this might improve performance. In general, it's a good step towards ensuring Fortnite won't fall behind the technology curve. But your mileage may vary, as DirectX 12 is relatively new and doesn't universally improve performance on all PC hardware. 6 years after launching on Steam Early Access and roughly a year after it became a full retail product, Rust finally has its first paid DLC. Called the Instruments Pack, it's a collection of musical instruments like a piano and a drum kit that all work as actual instruments in-game. Players can actually play them with MIDI controllers. The pack costs $10 and will be available to PC players on December 5th. Here and now, the pack is on the game's test server and free for all users. When the paid content launches, people that haven't purchased it will still be able to interact and play with the instruments provided that they find them or get them from a player who has already bought them. Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC has been steeped in technical problems since launch. Many of the issues stem from Rockstar's own store and launcher system, which was only released earlier this year. Since its launch, Rockstar has been working with Nvidia to improve performance issues. Rockstar have also been working on fixing the game's stability issues. The game's latest patch supposedly implemented some fixes thanks to that partnership with Nvidia and some general fixes for quad and 8-core CPUs. The co-op survival shooter GTFO just got a new trailer detailing the game's early access plans. It looks like an amped up Left 4 Dead style game and is supposedly launching sometime this year. Alien Isolation is going on the road. Well, sort of. The hit horror game is getting a Nintendo Switch version and it launches on December 5th. For $35 you'll get the base game and its 2 DLCs. Both DLCs focus on the original movie's cast of characters, including the franchise's biggest name, Ripley, who is played by Sigourney Weaver. In our final story this week, Warframe is getting a pretty interesting update that adds spaceship battles with the Empyrean update, hopefully before the end of the year. That said, a special update is launching before Empyrean called Rising Tides. Players will travel across the game's various worlds to track down spaceship parts and build a dry dock for their spaceship, which will go live when Empyrean does. And that wraps it up for today's episode of This Week in Gaming. As always guys, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if there's any stories you think we might have missed this week, or which stories you thought were the most interesting. I'll see you guys next time. This is Level Cap signing off.